allow me to introduce Yi-ching. Lee is going to give us a presentation called Picturing English, Participatory Photography in College EFL Classrooms in Taiwan. A little bit about Yi-ching first. She's a doctoral candidate. She's currently writing her dissertation, and she's interested in the notion of learner investment and agency in a second and foreign language classroom. So I'll give her a moment to set up, and we can grab snacks in the meantime.
I brought my own technical, so it's good.
Still low. Red. I don't know how long the red.
So this is going to be the last presentation today, I promise, and hopefully. So welcome and thank you for staying until 3:30 in the Friday afternoon. And my name is Yi-ching. Today I'm going to share with you just a small part of my dissertation research, and the title is Participatory Photography in an EFL Classroom. And for those of you who are now familiar with the term EFL, it's short for Learning English as a Foreign Language. And before I get into my own project, I would like to talk a little bit about the methodology called Photovoice. It's really the methodology that frames and really inspired my own research, part of my research project. So I would really like to talk briefly about it. So what is Photovoice? Just a brief history and its development. So it was first developed in the mid-1990s, and actually it started in the field of public health and health education. It was a methodology researchers used to help rural community in China to identify their health-related needs. And it's a way to do need assessment and help to make some changes at institutional levels. But recently it's been taken up as a creative methodology, and so feminist action research tool. And I have, in the end of this PowerPoint slides, I have a list of selected references if you're interested. Especially these references I listed. Most of them are in the field of education. So there are more researchers and educators that try to use Photovoice or some form of Photovoice and adopt them in their own classrooms. And Photovoice actually has its theoretical roots in several different fields. So I'm just going to run through them really quickly. And first one is the critical theory, especially for years problem posing, because Photovoice aims to really address and pose issues that are central to their participants' life. And the goal is just create this space for critical dialogue and help people to raise their awareness of the community needs and challenges. And the second one is the documentary research, but unlike the traditional photography documentary research, Photovoice wants to sort of disrupt the traditional researchers and participant power relations. Because in traditional documentary research, there's always some kind of external expert or photographer that comes in and take pictures of their community and sort of help them to, and interpret them for the communities. But Photovoice just wants, it's more of a grounded, bottom-up process that really asks the participant to actively research their community and figure out and try to produce images and interpret those images on their own. And the last one is feminist action research, because it was first developed as a way to address issues and challenges the community of women faced. If you're really interested in learning more about the real deal, I really recommend these two articles, especially the Mayer and Kroger articles. It's done a really thorough review of the theoretical frameworks and its methodologies, and especially how it's been taken up in the field of education as an action research tool. Then I first actually learned about Photovoice about 3 years ago. It was from an exhibition put together by a group of graduate students from one of the qualitative methodology courses here at the Scope Ed. So there was a gallery walk, and I was very intrigued and impressed by how powerful visual representation could be in terms of like how people talk about and portray their own lives. So then I decided to learn more about it, and it was sort of in the midst of my putting together my research, dissertation research proposal. And I proposed the idea of participatory photography project with the instructor I was going to work with. And also it just happened, she was interested in having a new project, something like interesting and she hasn't done with her class. So we actually really clicked, and that's how this whole project really came together. And I wanted to talk a little about my own research. But before I go into give you all this background information, I wanted to really point out what I'm about to describe is an adaptation of Photovoice. So it's not, when you read about what people write about Photovoice, it's probably not gonna look very exactly the same with what I'm gonna tell you. So that's one thing. And so it's a project that I did for my dissertation research, and my research questions actually look at the idea of learner investment, how learners are invested, what kind of investment they make, and notion of learner agency, how agency sort of manifests itself in the classrooms. So I have 37 participants, and they are second-year English major students in Taiwan. Also, actually they come from two different groups. One group, in the first group there are 20 students, and the second one there are 17 students. So like I said, it's embedded in a larger research project, so it's only part of my data collection. So for my real dissertation research, I have field classroom observation, have interviews, student interviews, teacher interviews, I have focus group discussion as well. So what I'm showing you just like a tiny slice for my dissertation, which is bad decision making on my part. So just do something less ambitious.
That's a good decision making.
So I would like to talk a little bit about the process. First of all, the reason I say it's an adaptation because the teacher that I work with and I made lots of decisions together. So we like the idea of participatory photography, but we weren't exactly sure what it was going to look like and how it would fit into her classroom. Naturally, as a researcher, like my motivation is to collect as much quality data as possible. I have to be really honest about that. But for the teacher, she wanted to know what does that do for her and her students, and how is that an effective pedagogical tool for her. So I will come back to address that issue later. So then the teacher and I, we have a really long discussion about what her expectations were as a teacher. And so when we started, I was asked to do a discussion. I led a discussion with those participants and we talked about how reading photographs as text, like reading text, how photos and visual images can also convey messages, like a piece of writing. So there's a lot of discussion about photographers' intentions, what messages are being conveyed, and we also look at some examples of Photovoice. So what people actually do with them. And then also we have a discussion about the ethics of doing a photography project. What's appropriate behaviors, ask for permissions or be really respectful, especially when you are around people you don't know, like strangers. And also one of my concerns was technology. I didn't know, I wasn't sure whether all students have the kind of technology they can take photos with. But apparently after I got to the research site, it was evident like all the students were way more tech savvy than I was. So there wasn't really an issue at the end. And then we do have an overarching theme, which is kind of what I was really interested in learning for my dissertation research. So the students were asked to research and document their experiences as an EFL learner in Taiwan. So they were encouraged to talk about their past experience or the past, the present, and future hopes and dreams as a learner. And also, the students have a total of 10 weeks to complete the whole project. But then it goes to the third part called, I call it on the right track. The students were required by the instructor to send 2 pictures and the written text accompanying the pictures to the instructor's email. The instructor wanted to do it for several reasons. First of all, she wanted to make sure she was able to monitor and knew where the students were in the entire process. And she made a point to me that she didn't want the students to just scramble and put 10 random pictures together the night before they have to present it to the class. So her rationale was more to we really wanted to be smart about it and really pay lots of attention and putting good work in their own photos and the project. And then another thing is we also talked about grading. In the entire research project, I was the participant observer, so I was not responsible for the students' grade. I only sat there and just watch them basically. But the teacher wanted to know, also the student wanted to know exactly what they were supposed to do. They wanted to make sure they get good grades, which is very understandable. So the teacher started talking about like the grading rubric or criteria. So it's very possible I cringed a little when the teacher was talking about grading Photovoice or participatory photography. From my perspective, I don't know how you grade people's creativity or quality of pictures or quality of the stories they choose to tell. So it was, at that time, it was hard for me to wrap my head around it. But if I remove myself from a research position, I can see the teacher's point, like as an instructor, as a teacher, she wants to make sure there's a pedagogical benefit to doing that, besides just helping me complete my dissertation, right? So we talk a lot about it. So we sat down together. I wanted to know what the instructor's expectations are and what are the objectives she wanted to accomplish. Also, I do want the students and the teachers, they do benefit from doing this together. It's not just for me. So we talk a lot about that, what grading will be like. Interestingly, the rubric